That's what we're going to focus today on Talk Point. And I have a guest here that will be doing justice to that with me. I have Nelson Ekujumi. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, viewers.
Yes, I like your attire today.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Let's quickly go to the point. Just last week, just like I said, we had this verdict from the Supreme Court giving autonomy to local governments that they can now receive their funds directly from the local government, from the federal government rather. When you heard that first, what actually were your thoughts? Because it's been on for quite a while.
Yes, when that news broke, I joined millions of Nigerians because if you look at the atmosphere, it was celebration galore all over the country to say victory at last. I saw that judgment by the Supreme Court as victory for democracy in the sense that over the years, for close to 2 decades, we have waged this battle to free the local government from the stranglehold that they have been subjected to. And we must commend the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration for taking the bull by the horns, for charting a new course. That judgment was historic. If you recollect, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's predecessor tried to achieve that autonomy, financial autonomy, through the legislature, but it met a brick wall.
I think it came in through what they called Executive Order 10 or
yes,
so.
Yes,
and that was on for quite
yes,
some
the
time.
courts nullified it, And so President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, recognizing that on issues affecting issues of dispute between federal government and subnationals, and that's the state, that the only authority that can adjudicate is the Supreme Court. Now took the bull by the horns to approach the Supreme Court for an interpretation of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court gave that verdict. For me and millions of Nigerians, we saw it as victory for democracy because it will allow people at the grassroots to have a proper feel of governance once again that they have been deprived over the years because of what local government administration had become. It will help deepen our democracy. So it's not about some people losing or some people winning. It's a collective victory for all of us because it's for the betterment and progress of our dear country, Nigeria.
Yes, that ruling also said that local governments that are not elected as in officials of local government and local governments that are not elected cannot have access to such monies. And we know that about 22 states, as we speak to you, 22 states have not conducted elections. So how are they going to do it? And because it has been given, the verdict has been given, and it has to start immediately.
Over the years, we have always complained that the problem we suffer in this country is not the absence of laws to make our lives better, but the implementation. And the judgment of the Supreme Court was very clear that any democratically elected, any non-democratically elected local government administration must not get that fund. So it's clear that, as you rightly said, over about 21 or 22 states are yet to conduct local government elections. And from the feelers we are getting, we heard that the state governments are now running helter-skelter to ensure that they conduct local government elections so that they will be able to receive their funds from the federation.
Is that not funny? Because that tells you that they know that they're supposed to have local governments in place, but some would decide to toy with it and put in administrators rather than elected officials.
Yes, because why we have had that abnormally is because there has been no interpretation of the law to enforce it. And now that the Supreme Court has given the judgment, don't forget, just like former President Olusegun Obasanjo did when he was in office, when he legally seized the allocation of Lagos state government because...
Illegally?
Yes, illegally, because the Supreme Court pronounced it, because he said the state government created 37 LCDs. And the Supreme Court said the state was in order, but where we need to correct is to ensure that it is listed in the Constitution. And the Supreme Court said the federal government had no powers to withhold any allocation from
I remember
states.
one particular word that was used,
inchoate, yes. Inchoate, that it has not yet been done properly, constitutionally, as expected through the National Assembly. Because for a local government to be listed as an existing local government, it has to pass through the legislative procedures at the national level. And that was what the Supreme Court said. But even when the Supreme Court alluded to that, the Supreme Court made it very clear that the federal government had no powers under the Constitution to withhold allocation to the state government. And that is why the Supreme Court now has given orders, because we should recognize that any judgment from the courts becomes a law. And a judgment by the Supreme Court is a judgment that cannot be contested, except maybe one wants to go to the Almighty God to lay a complaint. So that judgment by the Supreme Court now is that no allocation from the federation account must go to any local government that is not democratically elected. And that is why, even though we have agreed that we have walked the wrong path for so long, there's nothing too bad if we change our course to walk the right path now.
Very, very interesting. But one issue that will be resonating now is we have 37 LCDs created in Lagos.
Yeah.
We have 20 existing local governments,
yes,
according to the 1999 Constitution.
Yeah.
Now, what now happens to those 37 LCDs? Will they still collect the allocation, or it's, I don't know?
I think the 37 LCDs are creation from the existing 20 LGs. And if they have followed the procedures for creating it, because don't forget, no court of law has declared those LCDs as illegal.
I remember, sorry, let me just, because I remember that when those local governments were to be, LCDs were to be created before they were called local governments, there was this referendum held.
Absolutely, that's what the Constitution provides for.
Yeah, and they came up with over 75 LCDs that may come up. But eventually it went through the State
Legislative
House of Assembly. So maybe that explains why they cannot be...
Yes, because the Constitution is very clear about the processes for creating those local governments or local council development areas. And if that constitutional procedures have been followed at the local level, what just remains at the national level is for them to be entered into the books through same legislative procedure. That is why, as we speak today, those LCDs are legal entities under the Nigerian law. It only remains for them to be entered into the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as 57 local government and LCDs for Lagos. Don't forget, only recently, the courts declared the creation of local government in Ondo State illegal, because the assent to the creation of the local government was done outside the jurisdiction of the states. So if the assent to that local council development areas had been done within the state, the court would have had no cause to have pronounced them illegal. That process illegal. And that is why, for us in Lagos now, we hope those at the helm of our affairs, I'm talking about the governor, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, and other well-meaning Lagosians. This is the time to approach the National Assembly through our representatives from the House of Reps to the Senate to ensure that the 37 LCDs are listed as local council development areas in the Constitution.
Well, we're hoping that will happen, because the National Assembly itself also wants interpretation of that judgment, because we hear they want the Attorney General of the Federation and Commissioner for Justice to also come on board to explain in details to them. Do we have to go through that route to ensure that they get more information on it?
Well, if they are not well informed, don't forget the legislature is an institution on its own, and it has its own legal, apparatus. One expects that if the legislators are not well informed or they are not in the know of the proper thing to do, they will seek legal advice. And if they are asking for legal advice from the Attorney General of the Federation, it's still within their powers. But most importantly is that that judgment, if you look at the time it has been given till now, nothing can be done about it. That judgment has become law. So the National Assembly members, are free to seek legal interpretation of that judgment to be able to know which way to follow in doing the right thing.
although when that judgment was given, the Governors Forum, the NGF, said it's good, that's welcome development for devolution of powers.
Yeah.
That's the quote.
Good.
Now, but are we not taking those powers gradually away from the governors? Because as I speak, the governors too will also be meeting, and the Attorney General of the Federation says we're waiting to see the reaction of the governors on it.
Well, like I said earlier on, that judgment was victory for every one of us, because it has taken a lot of burden off the neck of state governments, because under the Constitution, there are rules assigned to local government administration. But over the years, we have seen those rules being bastardized and taken over by the state governments. You see state government building bus stops. That is not the responsibility of the state government under the law that we know. That's the responsibility of local governments. You see them building markets. Signage is a function of the local governments. Trunk C roads, because we have seen administrations, state government take over even the construction of feeder roads that falls under the jurisdiction of local government in some states. So if the governors have come to applaud this, it means they knew the right thing all along. But maybe they were just copying bad examples from one another. But now that the court has spoken and they recognize that all Nigerians are on the same page, that look, this time has come for us to deepen democracy by having, democratically elected government at the local government level, such that our people will be able to contribute their quota, democratically to the system, and also be, beneficiaries. So this welcome development from the NGF even before they meet, because I've been opportune to listen to some of the governors, and I have not seen any governor who has come out to query that judgment. All of them have applauded it, that this judgment is good for our democracy, because it takes a lot of burden off the neck of state government, burdens that might have been put in place by their predecessor and which they have been following the legal path. But now the Supreme Court has changed the course of direction and made everybody to recognize that this is the legal and right path to follow.
Some local governments in Nigeria, some states in some local governments, they conduct elections in 3 years. I know that Lagos State has started doing it in 4 years.
4 years.
And another one is expected to come next year, July.
July, yeah.
Now, but when you look at it and you juxtapose it with those that are yet to come up with local governments, what happens to them? Because there are about 470 something of them out of the 774 local governments that are yet to have local, and they have caretaker committees. What happens to those caretaker committees now?
Well, I want to give you an expo that I belong to a network in which we are concerned about the varying tenure of local government administration. I'm aware as we speak that some states local government administration have 4-year tenure, some have 3, some have 2. So we are looking at how do we aggregate views such that we'll have a fixed tenure, just like we have the tenure of the president or the governor or the National Assembly, state assembly members who are 4 years, so that we can have a 4-year uniform tenure for local government administration across the country. But in the spirit of federalism, if a state decides that the tenure of local government administration will be 3 years, so long as the administration there is democratically elected, that is the crux of the matter. So long as the rights of the people to determine who governs them at that local level is dignified, that they have the right to do that, and not a governor appointing or selecting a caretaker, sole administrator, or what have you, so be it. Because when we talk about federalism, it means people should develop at their own pace. They should work out a system that will profit them. We don't need to impose a uniformity on them. So, but the most important thing is for us to ensure that they have democratically elected administration in place.
According to the president, through his spokesperson, it says it is a welcome development and a significant step towards restructuring Nigeria. Now, with this judgment now, are there signs that Nigeria is tilting towards a true federal structure, or is just something that is just out of?
No, absolutely, absolutely. The Mr. President, if you know his antecedents, he has always been an advocate of federalism. Don't forget that he was one of the heroes of our democratic struggle. And one of the things we fought for, including yours sincerely, is that we want a Nigeria where people can decide their destiny, where their destiny don't have to be imposed on them. And if you look at this local government autonomy that the Supreme Court has affirmed, it's in that same direction. You can also recollect that some few months back, the issue of state police came up, and Mr. President also gave his idea that he was well at home and dry with that, even though there are procedures and processes to be followed to bring it to fruition. So the local government autonomy is part of the restructuring we are talking about, that we want power to be given to the people to decide. When people decide who leads them at the local government, that's the sense of belonging. Unlike when somebody sits down in the state capital and decide that, go and preside over the life of people there, that the people don't have a say in. But when the people elect somebody to govern them, then the people can hold that person accountable and responsible.
So indirectly now, if we look at it and try and put it together, we can say that we may be having more participation in the electoral process if it is the people that want their leaders there and they're the ones that have been elected there.
Absolutely. We are deepening democracy because once you allow people to start exercising the right to vote from the local government level, whereby the people know that whoever becomes the chairman, whoever becomes my councillor, is a product of my thumb on the ballot paper. Definitely, people's participation in the democratic process, will be enlarged, will be awakened. Don't also forget that it is also important that we also put our eyes on the ball in what happens in the political parties. The political parties must be encouraged to ensure that internal democracy takes root. In that way, they will have disciples that can go out there and say, look, this is what we are doing in our party. And when they preach that gospel, you can be rest assured that the fire will catch up with so many people who might be on the sidelines watching and seeing how things go.
I'm seeing a situation where when this comes up, which is a good development, more grassroots development will come. Grassroots development right from the scratch to top. Now, more people will get involved.
Yeah.
But one thing that is there may be part also between the chairman of a local government and possibly the governor of that particular state, because he believes he has his finance, he can do what is necessary to ensure that there is development. But don't you think there may be friction if they don't really dance to the tune of the sitting governor?
Politics or governance is a contest for power to distribute resources. So if you feel that because local government are going to get autonomy, which is what the law has prescribed, that it could lead to a conflict of interest between the governor and the local government, then we will allow the law to take its course. Because under the law, the local government administration has its functions clearly spelled out. The Constitution does not give the governor the power to remove a local government chairman or to interfere in the running of the affairs of a local government. Just the same way as Mr. President does not have the powers to remove or impeach a governor or determine how a governor runs his state. That is the responsibility of the State House of Assembly and those who elected them. So the fact that there could be friction is normal. It's a part of human engagement. Even in the home, between an husband and a wife, there's always friction, but you must settle to be able to have a peaceful and orderly home. But most importantly is that everybody recognizes that you have sworn on oaths to the Constitution. And if you go contrary, the same Constitution will hold you accountable and responsible. The Constitution will not listen to, it was my governor that did this. No, the governor did not swear on your behalf. You swore yourself. So whatever you do, you'll be held accountable. I think that will go a long way in ensuring that even when there's going to be friction, Once you know you are on the right side of the law, you have nothing to be afraid of, because whatever happens, the buck stops on your table. If you get allocation from your state and you generate, if you get allocation from the federation account and you generate resources internally, how you spend it, the people must be ready to ask you, and you must be ready to give answers. Nobody will listen to you for when you come and say, oh, when we collected 10 naira there, we donated 5 naira. Who asks? Was it discussed in the legislative chamber? Was it an approved expenditure? Once it's not approved, then you have questions to answer. So the fact that there could be friction, it should be the minutest thing that should bother us. But rather that we all should ensure that any person occupying public office is held accountable and responsible for his actions.
Yes, let me just ask you this one before I let you go. We know that Section 7 of the Constitution of Nigeria gives room for existence of local governments.
Yeah.
Now, the power has come to them now. With the power coming to them, of course, the powers will also go to the legislators at the local government level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Now, what do you advise now in terms of churning out, when the money starts coming in, and in terms of churning out projects that are people-oriented as we round up?
Yes, as the local governments are returning, as the days of old glory returns back to the local government administration, one will only admonish our local government officials, whether as a chairman or as a councillor, to recognize that budgetary provisions and expenditure are now electronically tracked, can now be electronically tracked. Whatever comes to your local government, people can as well access it from the FAC website. And whatever you generate internally, be ready to answer questions. But most importantly is that to hold the government accountable at all levels is the responsibility of all citizens. People should take away or do away with that notion. Oh, there's EFCC. EFCC is people by human beings. If people don't raise any queries, there's little or nothing EFCC can do, because EFCC are not ghosts or spirits. They work with information. Just 2 days ago or yesterday, the former American president was shot, and I listened to the security agency calling on people to come forward with whatever available information you can offer them to aid the investigation. That is how it runs in any society. You don't leave the governance or the security of life and property to only those you have elected, because they are human beings like you and I.
Yes.
It's a collective exercise.
I'm afraid that's the best we can take today on Talk Point on Lagos Television. We've been talking on local government autonomy, and my guest has been Comrade Nelson Ekujumi, who has been giving us insight into some of these issues. Nelson, I want to thank you for being part of Talk Point.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
On that note, we have come to the end of Talk Point. 767 and 112 are still the lines to always call in times of emergency. Stay out of trouble. Ensure that you do what is right. Grassroots development will get more to you. It is also your responsibility to ensure that you cooperate so that things can get better. I am Momodulu Sonwo. See you some other time.